Okay, Will, you go ahead.
And I'd like to leave you with this gift from a constituent back in Tennessee.
Oh, I could use that at night.
It's an American flag.
That's very nice. I like that.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
So that is the President of the United States being presented with what is obviously an American flag, like easily recognizable. And the stupid son of a bitch thinks it's some sort of decorated blanket. And he has to be told on live TV, sir, that's an American flag. No, sir, don't eat the crayon, sir. Donald Trump is having a disastrous Oval Office press conference in which he's talking about rebranding the Department of Defense to the Department of War, which, believe it or not, is going to cost billions of dollars in congressional approval. The whole thing is a shit show, but before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, buckle up because this is some pretty crazy stuff, even by Donald Trump standards. Here we go.
See, and we weren't going to put up with. So, great job, Dan. And we've been talking about this Department of War. So we won the First World War. We won the Second World War. We won everything before that and in between. And then we decided to go woke and we changed the name to Department of Defense. So we're going Department of War. And I'd like to ask our Secretary of War to say a few words. Pete Hegseth. I think it's a much more appropriate name, especially in light of where the world is right now.
So one of the many reasons why we did rename the War Department is precisely because we wanted to at least adopt the posture that we were not going to initiate, we were not going to be aggressors, that yes, we would have a mighty defense force, but we're not conquerors, we're not bloodthirsty. Now, obviously, America, since we have renamed the Department of Defense, has not always lived up to that reputation, but it was a symbolic gesture. Trump, who is incredibly stupid and who is not a veteran, seems to believe that because we renamed the War Department to the Defense Department, that this somehow, this name change, this label change, undermined military preparedness and effectiveness in the ensuing decades. Here's another clip.
I'd like to ask you and maybe Dan Raisin-Cane to say a few words, please.
Mr. President, thank you. After winning a war for independence in 1789, George Washington established the War Department, and Henry Knox was his first Secretary of War. And this country won every major war after that, to include World War I and World War II. Total victory, Mr. President, as you said. Then 150 years after that, we changed the name after World War II from the Department of War to the Department of Defense in 1947. And as you pointed out, Mr. President, we haven't won a major war since, and that's not to disparage our warfighters, whether it's the Korean War, the Vietnam War, or our generation of Iraq and Afghanistan. That's to recognize.
But again, this didn't undermine the military effectiveness of the United States, just that warfare changed. Warfare changed. Like in Vietnam, for example. No, we didn't win Vietnam, but that was also because we were waging an offensive war against the Vietnamese. They had the home turf advantage. They fought asymmetrically. And since then, like you look at Afghanistan and Iraq, the United States military, like conventional forces to conventional forces, rolled through. I mean, my God, when the Allies invaded Iraq, which at the time I think had, it was like top 5, certainly top 10 largest standing armies in the world. Like we blitzed through them in 3 weeks, but then became, a 20-year slog as we tried to become an occupying force. Then you're fighting guerrillas and insurgents, right? It's not sustainable, right? That I think is undermined by what P. Hegseth is doing here, because if by his own reckoning, it seems to be that if we're going to rename it the Department of War, that we're probably going to be more inclined to do these sorts of, wars of conquest and occupation. Conventional force to conventional force, the United States military is still pretty unparalleled, but it's when we become an occupying force that things become very different. So I'm not entirely sure what he's trying to imply by this, but they're going full steam ahead.
And that's not to disparage our warfighters, whether it's the Korean War, the Vietnam War, or our generation of Iraq and Afghanistan. That's to recognize that this name change is not just about renaming, it's about restoring. Words matter. It's restoring, as you've guided us to, Mr. President, restoring the warrior ethos, restoring victory and clarity as an end state, restoring intentionality to the use of force. So At your direction, Mr. President, the War Department is going to fight decisively, not endless conflicts. It's going to fight to win, not to lose. We're going to go on offense, not just on defense. Maximum lethality, not tepid legality.
So yeah, we're not going to worry about the legality. I mean, we're going to kill everybody, right? We're just going to destroy everything and laws be damned. I mean, it's weird, bloodthirsty, unhinged shit coming from these people. Here's another clip.
Back.
All right, thank you very much. Very well stated, and really it has to do with winning. We should have won every war. We could have won every war, but we really chose to be very politically correct or wokey, and we just fight forever. And
what the hell does that mean? We be politically correct? What was politically correct about the armed conflicts that the United States had been involved in the past 40 years? What was politically correct about Iraq or Afghanistan? Those were catastrophic. Again, conventional force, extraordinary success, but then the overall mission became just an abject failure and resulted in like thousands of lives lost, trillions of dollars spent. What was politically correct about that? Is he saying because we didn't like nuke Iraq or Afghanistan? Like we didn't nuke Baghdad or Kabul? What are you talking about, man? It's total nonsense. Then, of course, we get into the congressional element, right? Because according to experts, Congress would have to rename the Department of Defense. Since it was an act of Congress, it renamed it in the first place.
But without the strength, we wouldn't have settled any of them. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, is it your expectation that Congress will codify this name change in the law?
I don't know, but we're going to find out, but I'm not sure they have to.
They do have to. But this is, again, this is Trump. I can just make all the decisions. I'm God King. And here's the rub before we play some of the other clips. According to reports, this name change will cost billions of dollars. Believe it or not, billions of dollars. Politico has a report about this. White House to rebrand the Pentagon, the War Department. The name change would likely require an act of Congress, although the White House is looking for ways to avoid that. Senior administration official confirmed the change would likely require an act of Congress, but the White House is looking for other alternatives that would avoid a vote. According to another person familiar with the deliberations, Trump has just confirmed both of these things. And this is the big part. It would likely cost billions of dollars to change the names of hundreds of Pentagon agencies, their stationery, emblems, plaques, and other signage at the Defense Department, along with bases around the world. The expense could put a serious dent into the administration's efforts to slash Pentagon spending and waste. So again, billions of dollars for this weird virtue signal, toxic bullshit. Like, bro, defense is for pussies. War is for real men. Like, it's just so weird, bro. It's weird and it's fiscally irresponsible. Wildly fiscally irresponsible. Speaking of war, it was reported by the New York Times that in Trump's first term, he authorized a SEAL Team 6, the same SEAL team that killed Osama bin Laden, to actually try to infiltrate North Korea to plant a listening device in Kim Jong-un's residence during the North Korean diplomatic talks with Trump. And then it failed, and it resulted in SEAL Team 6 being identified by a boat of North Koreans, and SEAL Team 6 killed them all and then basically retreated. And Trump was asked about that.
Jennifer, you want to?
Yeah, there's some new reporting on North Korea and this Navy SEAL incident in 2019. Can you say if the administration has engaged with North Korea on that incident since it happened recently?
Yeah.
And then can you share some recollection?
I don't know anything about it, no.
Okay, he doesn't know anything about it. So either he's a liar or he's a moron. You never know with Trump. Could be a mental decline. But according to the reporting, he specifically, because of the risk, as the sitting president, he specifically had to greenlight it, and he did. So that's Trump being an inveterate liar, or again, somebody in the throes of cognitive decline. Trump was also asked about the burgeoning alliance between India and China, which is happening on his watch because of his disastrous tariffs and incompetence. He was asked about that. This was his answer.
Pete doesn't want any part of that question. Yes, please.
Mr. President, who do you blame for losing India to China? In your post earlier today in the morning, you did put that out.
I don't think we have. I've been very disappointed that India would be buying so much oil, as you know, from Russia. And I let them know that. We put a very big tariff on India, 50% tariff, very high tariff. I get along very well with Modi, as you know. He's great. He was here a couple of months ago. In fact, we went to the Rose Garden, and the grass was so soaking wet. It was such a terrible place to have a news conference. I said, well, let's use a beautiful white stone emblematic of the White House, okay? And it's been very well received. But we had a news conference on the grass. That was my last news conference I had on the grass because everybody sunk in. You probably sunk in. Every reporter out there, they ruined their shoes. We made that change. It's been a really well-received change.
He spends most of his time talking about the friggin' renovations he's doing at the White House. It's just so dumb. It's amazing that we're here. But again, he and Modi do not have a good relationship. He's pissed that Modi refused to nominate him for a Nobel Peace Prize because Trump believes, or is at least claiming, perhaps he knows better, but is simply claiming dishonestly to have, effectively brokered the truce between India and Pakistan. India rejects that. India says, hey, these talks occurred behind the scenes and you had nothing to do with it. And Trump is pissed that Modi won't give him the credit for it. Although, again, I'll note, given that India and Pakistan are two nuclear-armed nations and that conflict broke out on Trump's watch, it's his fault. Speaking of armed conflict, Trump was asked about the situation in Venezuela.
Take a chance.
What happens if Venezuela flies jets over U.S. naval vessels again?
Well, I would say they're going to be in trouble. We'll let them know about that. We heard that happen, but it wasn't really over, not like they described. But I would say, General, if they do that, you have a choice of doing anything you want, okay? If they fly in a dangerous position, I would say that you or your captains can make the decision as to what they want to do, all right? Sure.
Sir.
General Kane offstage going, sure. Go, okay, we got it. Yeah, so again, Fox News, as I mentioned in a previous video, reporting that Trump might be going to war with Venezuela. Of course, the president doesn't have the authority to declare war, but that hasn't stopped, quite frankly, any president in modern American history. Believe it or not, beginning of World War II, that was the last war that Congress has formally declared. They've abdicated all their war-making authority because they're lazy and incompetent to the president. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what this president does, but it doesn't look good. I've got some other clips to play, but quite frankly, I'm going to play two more. Okay. I'm going to play two more to really encapsulate just how stupid Donald Trump is and how preposterous it is that this guy is the commander in chief for the next 3.5 years. Here was Trump talking about his 7-day absence from the public spotlight.
Last time I took a day off, everybody said bad things happened to me. You know that, Seb? I took 1 day off. I didn't take it off. I was working. In fact, I was here. But I didn't do a news conference, and they said bad things happened to the president.
That's why that's fake news, Mr. President.
It's fake.
Yeah, so that's Sebastian Gorka off screen, kind of a moron, and he's a British a MAGA cultist, and he says words like risible. That is so risible. Trump did not take simply a day off. He was absent for 7 days, and during his latest taxpayer-funded golf trip, he kept the press at bay. Now, listen, I suppose that's his right. The problem is that that's not what Trump usually does. Again, he's an attention whore, so he loves to be in front of the camera. He loves to be in front of the microphone. And given his age and physical and mental decline and the bruising and the swollen ankles, it's perfectly reasonable to assume that there might have been a medical episode, and indeed there may have been. Certainly, Trump was trying to keep his distance from the press in a way we typically don't see from him. I'm going to play 1, 2. I said 2 more. Okay, damn it. Now it's really 2 more. We're going to play this clip in which Trump lies his ass off about transparency.
Do it for one reason. I think it's good for the country. And we are very transparent. There's never been transparency like we have.
That's absurd. Donald Trump, this idea of transparency. So it is true that Donald Trump is in front of the cameras a lot. And if that's your definition of transparency, then yes, that's true. But that's a pretty stupid definition of transparent. Somebody could show up in front of a camera like Trump as a politician and just lie all the time or not answer any questions or just stand there. The fact that they are in front of cameras or even using their mouth hole to articulate sound, that does not necessarily convey transparency. As we can see from the Epstein files debacle, Donald Trump is not particularly disposed towards transparency. And the fact that he hasn't released his tax files and things of that nature, right? His medical records for years. Trump is just objectively opaque, not transparent. One last clip in which we circle all the way back to this morning's breaking news about the disastrous August BLS numbers, the jobs numbers.
Please. Thank you very much, sir. Well, I think that if you look at the indicators, there's capital spending boom, industrial production at an all-time high. The Atlanta Fed says GDP now is north of 3%. And so all the indicators are saying that things are really strong. And what we've also seen is that Goldman Sachs put out a study yesterday that said that the August number tends to be really messed up because of seasonal adjustment things, and they tend to be revised way up. And so I think if they were revised up, which has happened on average over the last 15 years by about 60,000, then everything else would make sense. But right now we're puzzled about the BLS numbers and looking forward for new leadership there to make it so that the numbers are more reliable.
So again, they're just saying that the numbers are fake. Absolutely no reason to believe it, but it's what they're doing right. I mean, and this press conference is still going on. I said that was going to be the last thing that we talked about, and yet it can't be because on the topic of the BLS August jobs numbers, Trump is trying to blame President Biden.
You passed the one big beautiful bill, sir. 5 months, all these slew of events next year. World Cup, G20, all America 250. Given this, what's your economic outlook for the year 2026? How much growth do you think is reasonable for us to expect economically next year?
Well, I heard, and we were on a very downward path with Biden, and I heard that the most we could do is 1%
GDP on average under Biden is much higher than it has been under Trump. Number one. Number two, you want to talk about job growth under President Biden versus Trump? President Biden in the last year of 2024 averaged 186,000 jobs per month. According to Carolyn Levitt, 500,000 jobs have been created under Trump in 7 months. You break that down, that's not good, right? That means that Biden is doing about double of what Trump is on average per month. 2024 to 2025, that's where we are. Donald Trump has been an objective failure on the economy, and he's hoping to move the goalpost and distract people so that they won't notice. And I think they will, and Democrats absolutely have to step up and make sure that they do. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.